allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Hubbard County Board meeting. I'll call this meeting to order. And we start out with agenda approval. Any changes?
Yeah, I just got a note from Josh that he found some inconsistencies in his items, so he's pulling item 7A and 7B, and we'll bring them back at a later date.
Okay.
And then item 13A and 13B, I'm gonna pull for further discussion.
7A, 7B, 13A and B are pulled for discussion?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we've got a busy agenda today, so I'm hoping we hit the marks, but we'll make it happen anyway. We've got Bruce from BKV at 10 o'clock. We've got Angie Ehrman and Stephanie Fairchild from Heritage gonna be here between 10 and 10:30, and then at 10:30, we kind of have a hard set time for a closed session update for attorney-client privilege. So it's gonna be a tight schedule, but we'll make it through. And then after the meeting at 11, we are planning on having a personnel meeting too.
Okay. We'll adjust as we get closer to 10:30, however necessary, okay? Any good, we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's been approved. Public input, is there any? If not, we'll close public input. Consent agenda, anything to discuss or pull? If not, we have a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's approved. All right, employee recognition. We have several. In the highway department, we have Ethan Bovolsky, maintenance 2 position, began full-time on November 6th. And then in the sheriff's department, we have Hunter Lilioden, dispatch jailer, began full-time position on October 24th. And Mason Donahue, dispatch jailer, is recognized for service from December 30th, 2022 to November 1st, 2023. And then Kenneth Fix, dispatch jailer, is recognized for service from December 8th, 2021 to November 3rd, 2023. We welcome those new ones aboard and appreciate their service. Nobody's here? Okay. All right, we move on to the next item is highway.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Quite a few things on the agenda for today, so we will start with the first being review and approve final payment for project SAP 029-609-025. This is our project up on CSAH 9 from Besida over to the Clearwater line. And it was a reclamation project done by Hawkinson Construction. And we would recommend that the final payment amount of $134,404.13 be made to them as everything is in order, quantities have been checked, and paperwork is good.
I'll approve. I'll make a motion to approve, sorry.
Okay. Got a second? Any more discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's approved.
Okay, we get review and approve final payment for project SAP 029-649-002. This is CSAH 49, our storm sewer repair over in the city of Akeley. Small little project that was done by Gladen Construction. And final payment for them is $49,977.12. As with the last one, everything's in order, quantities checked, and we've got the paperwork good to go.
Just a quick question.
Oh, go ahead.
What's with the painted crosswalks? I didn't, was that just part of the state aid requirement?
Yeah, so anytime now that you redo any section with the sidewalk and stuff, it's gotta be ADA compliant, and so
alright.
we mark it according as
Okay,
such.
all right.
And, yeah, it doesn't
Just-
match the rest of it.
It really strikes you when you drive down the street and you've never seen it before.
Yeah, and as the rest of that up to Highway 34 gets done, then you'll see that carrying through, it just doesn't match at the time, so.
That's fine,
I like the bike path, you know, that you see along.
yeah.
I'm still gonna move to approve.
That's fine.
We have a second? David, second?
Seconded.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Number 3, review and approve resolution in support of MnDOT Contract Number 1054798. So this is a resolution that lays out the detour that'll be required for MnDOT Project 2901-21, which will be the Osage to Park Rapids construction for next year, and they're gonna use our CSAH 48 as a detour. So this kind of lays everything out with the estimated reimbursement for that of just over $8,000 for reimbursement, so.
It's nice they're gonna finish the road.
Yeah, yep, that's very necessary.
I'll move to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes.
All right, number 4, review and approve resolution in support of project SP 029-070-016 and 088-070-080. What this is for is the county road safety plan update that I had mentioned quite some time back. We had put in for being part of the phase 3 portion of this. The last time the county had a county road safety plan done was 2012. We did a lot of the lower cost, easy fixes for those, such as sign upgrades, pavement markings, different things like that. The phase 3 now that's coming through, that's more of an infrastructure type look at it for larger changes, and we were lucky enough to be figured in on that. And as part of that, it includes a look at some of the more urban type areas in whether Safe Streets for All is what it's called. And so as part of this county road safety plan, once you get this completed and adopted, then it opens you up for a whole lot more funding for some of these safety projects. And so as part of that, it's 80% funded by federal, and of course then 20% funded by the local, and it would more than likely be covered by CSAH funds at $36,647.49. So this is the resolution in support of that.
Chet, does that open up possible funding for a roundabout on 7 and 40?
It could, you bet. Yep.
I'll move to approve.
On 7 and 1.
40? If you've never been there, it's worth the drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't picture it. But, oh, yeah, I think I know.
Be cautious, yeah.
Yeah, if you're going north, you're fine.
Yeah.
But if you're going east and west,
Not so good.
it's a challenge.
Right.
Yeah. I'll second.
Okay, we got a second. Any more discussion or questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Very good. Our next item is request authorization to advertise and solicit quotes for our annual maintenance contracts. So this would be our pavement markings, our ag surfacing, and our calcium chloride for 2024. And typically, this would come to you probably in the first meeting of January to prep for the year, and we would have the projects listed that we intended to be completed. But with this one, our 3-year contract for calcium chloride ran out last year, so we need a new solicitation for that. And with as large as that program is getting, along with all of the townships that jump onto that, we wanted to advertise it a little bit early, so we actually had a price for the townships, as we're kind of anticipating that the pricing is gonna be up from last year. And so if a township, or even the county for that matter, needs to make some adjustments based upon what was budgeted, it'd be nice to have that number in now. So we're just asking for permission to solicit those. They would come back to you for approval anyway.
I'll move to approve the recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay. Any more questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Then we got review and approve quote for a service truck body and crane, and the sole quote that I sent out to you from Bird's Truck Equipment out of Moorhead, Minnesota, that is off of the state contract pricing, which would be a knapheide box, totally set up for what the mechanics have chosen for that. The cost of the service box with the crane is $100,915. And so if you recall, it wasn't too long ago, I had you approve the purchase of the chassis for this. And this has been budgeted for a few years. And I think we've had roughly $160,000 in the budget. So we're really close. I think the chassis was around $67,000. So the money is budgeted there. It's not gonna be an issue. This is just an expensive piece of equipment, but it's obviously necessary. It's replacing 2001 vehicle.
Yeah,
that you
you've
alluded
stretched
to,
the life
so,
out of that
yeah,
incredibly.
Okay,
I'll move to approve.
David
I'll
moves.
second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Passes.
Yeah, do you want to do a project update?
Yeah, we do have a few little things to mention on construction projects. Earlier this year, Knife River Materials completed the work we had on County Road 119 and 82, and a couple of township roads were tied into that project as well. But they had a little bit of cleanup to do. They finally got that done, some pavement grinding. Actually, that was completed last week, so we're looking to have that final in before the end of the year, so hopefully we can close out that whole contract. Anderson Brothers finished some slope work that we did after the paving on County Road 7. If anybody has driven through their subcontractor, Young Excavating, did some slope improvement work and has that all essentially turf established right now for through the winter, and hopefully the grass will all come up well in the spring. And we hope to get that contract finalized out in the spring of 2024 with release of the MPCA permit. Landwehr Construction has basically got everything completed on the Nevis Township Bridge project. The paving is completed, pavement marking. They've got the turf establishment to complete, and we look for that contract to be finalized out in the spring as well. And then Linco Construction has the trailhead project in Akeley. They had completed the paving out there. They still have more work to do. That project is suspended until spring as well. We also have Redstone Construction is a current contractor that was awarded the bridge replacement project on our CSAH 13, County Road 13 south of Nevis over the Crow Wing River. We're in discussion with them. They are potentially going to start that project earlier, possibly this winter, or before and during road restrictions. At that point in time, we might close the road. We'll see what transpires, but that project, instead of possibly starting in May, we may get it advanced starting earlier. Consequently, we can have the road open and the project completed earlier, salvage part of the summer season as well with that roadway being open. So that's about it. I think 19 major projects. So.
Wow, that's a lot.
It was a busy year. Yep, and next year is no less. So that's it for that.
Yeah, I
Any,
think so,
any
yeah,
questions
yeah.
on that?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you do your bridge construction inspection in-house, or is that gonna be a firm?
We do it.
So in-house, okay, all right. And then on 25, I know that your staff had been out and done some shouldering work because it got beat pretty hard.
It did, yeah. We were actually contacted
From
by,
the detour, so.
yeah, we were contacted by MnDOT a while back, and
Okay.
they were either they were willing to take on
Okay.
that maintenance, or we could do it and we would charge them back. And so
Okay,
we
great.
didn't want to wait as long as it would have taken, so we did do some. I think it still requires a little bit more, but we'll
Yeah,
get to that.
yeah.
It was tough.
Due to the detour, not the actual road itself, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
they've been good.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff and Jed.
Okay, the last thing on our agenda, I guess it wasn't listed on there, but I believe it was pulled from maybe from another item. Bittersweet day for me. I'm asking for your acceptance of my resignation effective December 28th. I've accepted another position within the private sector, and you know, it's both exciting and scary at the same time. As I've had what I would consider an extremely good career here. I cannot say how much the support of the board has been appreciated, and administration, and you know, what I leave behind is what I would assume to be is one of the best county staffs in any highway department in the state. So you're not gonna be left with you know, too many worries from your side of it. I think there will be a lot of interest in the position, but it was an unbelievably tough decision There is no negatives that I would point to that caused this. It's just a new opportunity, and I'm, cautiously optimistic that it's as good or better than what I've had here. And so again, I thank you for your support over the years. It's been a kind of crazy ride with all the different things that a person gets involved with. But the county, especially the highway department, is in a very good direction right now, and I don't anticipate that to change. So please keep your support up, and everything will be just fine here. So I'm gonna miss everything about it.
Well, thank you for your service for 17 years.
Yes,
I'm sure it flew by.
it was
Yeah,
fast.
fast.
Yep, it was fast. So
Thank you.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, natural resource management.
Now I feel depressed.
You can call the EAP.
Yeah. I need help. The first thing I have is to review and approve a fee list for the Natural Resource Management Department. Fee list is to be updated every 3 years, and we haven't had one updated since 2009. We've been running off the same prices or mismatched prices. One guy will charge 25 cents for a syrup tap, and one guy will charge 10 cents. So one of my main things is being consistent. I want to have consistency across the board. So this is just an updated fee list starting January 1st of 24. A couple things aren't going to change that are set in policy, such as easements and cabin leases. But the main thing that we're getting up to date on is the special product fees and special lease fees and aggregate fees. Working with other counties in the state, being consistent with them too. We just need to have an updated list that we can have to look at and go from there instead of pulling numbers out of our heads. So this is just to approve this list starting January 1st.
Corey, I didn't even know there was a list. So when I looked through this, I just had a couple of questions. So what does it mean, sticks? Do people just actually go gather?
Yeah, so birch sticks, like right now it's popular. People,
Yes.
most of the times, to be
People
honest,
actually
probably
come
people
in and-
steal it.
Yeah.
But for the honest people that want to follow the laws, we have something here that says, they can go get up to 100 birch sticks under 2 inches for 25 cents a piece. So,
I'm not even sure people realize they're supposed to get.
yeah, and it is a pretty big fine if people get caught doing it. So,
Really?
yeah, yep. So we have something here now that we can give them a permit for, and we have a price for it. So.
Jeff, has this been posted on the website before?
I'm not sure that it has, and our intention is to make this consistent with the rest of the fee schedule that we'll have later this year. So
Yep.
if we approve this as it's proposed, it'll probably be appended to the total fee schedule that we bring back to you later this year.
So the last one, Bob Hoffman wrote up in 2009, and that's the last one we have.
With the syrup taps, do they have to get those out at the end of the season?
Yeah, so usually syrup season's done by June 1st, so that's the date that it expires will be June 1st.
I was wondering, because when I bought my property in 1990, a previous owner did that, and they were still in there.
Oof,
They were
that's
grown
not good.
over.
Yeah, then
They'd
that,
be a logger cutting
if,
those things.
yeah, you don't want a saw to hit them, so. Yeah, all these have special dates for expirations and how long they can last. And just being consistent with other counties too. That's a big thing. One of the foresters in our department was actually using a form from Becker County, and I said, no, we got to stick with our county and go off our prices and our policies. So.
Any other questions?
What kind of enforcement is there for, let's just take aggregate for an example.
Yep.
I know there's been talk of in the past, somebody goes in and crushes aggregate in a Hubbard County pit, and then they haul it to a different county and apply it to a road.
Yep.
How can you prove it? How can, you know, do you have to, are you just relying on the contractor's honesty that yes, it's being used
Pretty
on
much.
your roads?
So this aggregate is supposed to stay in Becker, or Hubbard County, on Hubbard County public roads. There is a whole policy on aggregate. I don't know what kind of fine comes with it, but I know with special products, there's statute 92.7, and then we have a deputy that works with us that follows up on that and can charge restitution on that kind of stuff. If people are stealing aggregate, that's the same thing. They can get charged criminally and civil. So
Typically, the crushing permits are granted based on their demonstration of work within the county for the volumes that they need, and I know you're aware of that, but I just wanted to say that out loud, that that's kind of how that's enforced. And like everything else in the county, things are enforced when people are, when we get a report that something's not being done correctly.
and it is like fuel wood permits, and it is a lot of honesty though.
Yeah, no, I realize that.
It's pretty much based on honesty. And if someone messes up or steals some aggregate, we don't have to give them a permit again. So it's kind of
Okay.
what happens there too.
Any more questions? No? I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Any discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes.
All right, thank you. The second item I have is to review and approve an easement across unsold tax forfeited land and supporting resolution for Roger Hoffman in section 22 of 14332. That's in Lakeport Township. He has a driveway that's been going through tax forfeited land for many, many years. He claims it's been there for 100 years. So he's he came to us to get an easement from us. It's 0.17 acres, more or less. The easement has been approved by the highway engineer, environmental services, and the county attorney, with all recommending approval. And this easement appraised value is $255. And I believe he wants to build onto his house, and the mortgage company has to see an easement before he can build onto it. So I'm in full support of him getting an easement. So
Yeah, it looked like it's been there a while, so I was wondering, how did this come up?
Yeah.
So it was because,
so I'm glad he came forward, and actually we can provide him one.
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve.
okay.
I'll second.
Any more questions? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So solid waste has been pulled.
Do we want to jump in?
That is,
Well, next is social services, but if you need to get going? Go ahead. Okay.
Morning, Mr. Chair, board members. Just got a couple of agenda items for you today. The first we have is our operating agreement and resolution that we need for the public transit. Pretty much same as last year. We just need a resolution to go with the application and move it forward.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, do you have any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes.
All right, thank you. And then the second one I have is the rural Minnesota SEP contract that we have. This one is, again, they've actually done a really good job of helping out the people, the clients that we have. They're meeting and exceeding the benchmarks set by the state of Minnesota. And really, again, in my opinion, are doing a really good job. And so the contract is, again, 210, which is, and it's an increase of only $10,000, which is kind of, I mean, it's actually really good, so.
So Brian, on the last page on Exhibit B, they didn't get real specific on expected. They put down expected performance, but I'd like to see numbers of people that they actually saw, and then out of those people that they saw, how many people sustained employment? Could you get those for us?
Yeah, so they usually, or not usually, they give me an end of the year report, and I will get that to you guys once I get it. And part of that, the expected performance, so that right there is, again, that's basically the percentage of people that maintain employment, but I'll get you the exact numbers.
And I know we had talked before, and you felt that they could do this more efficiently than if you did it in-house.
Yeah.
So I'll move to approve.
Yeah, it's to get the structure that we would need to include the staffing would just be, I mean, we'd eat up what they have in a contract and what, 2.5 staff, and it would take more than that.
One second.
Got a motion and a second. Any more questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes.
Thank you.
Jonathan?
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So I have two items, both the same, hazardous buildings here in Hubbard County. I'm sure as the Commissioners, as you're aware, you could drive around the county or any county in this state, and you're going to see some buildings that should either be raised or updated. And we're no different. So when we receive reports normally from neighbors that see it as a hazard, they'll notify the Environmental Services Department, which will investigate it, document it, and then send it to me, which is what happened here. The first of which on our agenda is Mr. Larson. Any questions? The photographs that are in the record here today show that it is a danger. It's a building that needs to be taken down and correctly through solid waste. So there's a procedure through solid waste to do that correctly as well. But any questions?
So let's say that they refused and the county did that, then is that put on their, how do we collect for that?
That is a great question. So we would file the order once the expiration has happened and it has not been fixed, we'll file the order with the district court as well as documentation that it has still not been corrected. We'll ask the court for an order allowing us to go on the property and clean it up and to put I can't remember the exact terminology, I apologize.
Kind of like a lien?
We'll put a lien on the
Yeah.
property for tax purposes,
Okay.
correct. We'll ask the court to order that in the same order that they allow us to do it.
Okay.
Which there is that enforcement cost that goes along with this, but given the dangerous nature of these buildings, I assume the board would be in agreement with that cost, understanding that we can hopefully collect with taxes on the back end.
I have a similar question. This is now the third and fourth one since I've been on the board. So the first two, did the county have to do it, or?
We did not. Both of them did actually correct, and we're in contact with my office. Very nice people, as it turned out. They just didn't live here and weren't aware of it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right,
I'll move to approve.
And I'll second.
all right. Any more questions? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It passes.
Similarly, the second item I have on is another hazardous building. In this case, it is just falling apart. Ultimately, the prior one was a fire, but this is just a falling apart building that is a hazard in the area. Any questions about this particular one? Otherwise, I'd ask the board to approve that order as well.
Do you have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second. Okay, any more discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes.
Thank you, commissioners. That's all I had for you today.
Till 10:30?
No, that Gina will be bringing that item at
Oh,
10:30.
okay, okay. Good morning.
Good morning. I have one item for the board this morning, and that is an ordinance amendment proposal that was submitted, and the planning commission held a public hearing on this at their most recent meeting. The proposal is to allow an education use category to be added to the use table in section 401 of the shoreland ordinance to allow an educational use, The planning commission recommendation was that we entertain such a use, that it would be allowed as a conditional use on general development and recreational development lake classifications. And then their initial recommendation was also to have 2 performance standards apply to that use, which would essentially be taking the existing 2 standards that apply to the church use category, doing a find and replace with replacing the church words in those standards with education use. And that was the planning commission's recommendation on the proposal. I do see that we have the representative from the group that proposed the ordinance change in attendance, so if you would have questions, I'm sure she'd be able to answer those and be happy to do so as well, but.
Well, I heard her at the planning commission meeting, but if you would like to come up and inform the board of.
Oh, sure.
It's just interesting.
It's just interesting. Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. I didn't know I was gonna talk today, so. But that's all right. Hi, hello, everyone. Good morning. My name's Joanna Wallenberg. I recognize a few faces. I know some people's spouses. And so, okay, let me try to keep this succinct to this issue because I could talk in broad. So what we're hoping to do, there's my handwriting right there, is to, we have established a charter school. So a charter school is a free public school. And it will be opening in the fall of 2024. So we are approved through an authorizer, which is Volunteers of America in the state of Minnesota. It's a 2-step process. So you first get approved through an authorizer. Ours is Volunteers of America. And then you submit an affidavit to the Department of Education. So we have done that as well. So we are district number 4302. So we received all the approvals to open our school. So we're in the process of finalizing a location. This school will be really focused on environmental learning. So every indoor classroom will also have an outdoor classroom. And as Hubbard County is such a lake-centric place, nature-focused forest place, we want to find a location where kids can be right in nature with their hands in the water, learning to paddle. I was looking at the logo of Hubbard County with the lake on it. Exactly. So we just want to make sure kids can be in the environment where they're learning. There's a lot of research out there about place-based education and the benefits of learning in nature. So our preferred sites are all on water because that's what we want kids to have direct access to. What other questions? I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
A couple questions for Eric. Looks like even when this is approved for ordinance change, look like this particular property is going to need a couple variances for
Yes, that's
the riparian property.
That's the interesting aspect to the planning commission's recommendation that I wanted to point out for the board, and that is the 2 performance standards that they recommended would result in the need of the group applying for variances from both of those standards due to the fact that the property on which they would like to operate the school is a riparian property, and secondly, the structure in which they would have the school be located is also located in the latter portion of Tier 2. And that's the area 267 to 534 feet back from the ordinary high water mark. So I'm not quite sure why they made the recommendation the way they did, knowing that that would lead to the need for those variances, but that's what the planning commission recommended.
But I think in conversation, Eric, they were just trying to come up with something countywide, not specifically looking at this case, but they just wanted to include the educational. And then for this property, it's okay, I'm putting words in their mouth, but this was my understanding from the meeting. They were okay with the standpoint that you have to look at it case by case because they're still wanting to protect the waters. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, myself, I would have gone about it a little differently, but yeah. So that's the recommendation from the planning commission in regard to the application, and then it's a matter for the board to decide if that's an amendment that you wish to entertain, and then if so, how you'd like to direct the planning commission further on the matter.
Are you okay with the recommendation then? You sound like you have a little hesitancy about it.
I think it's a little tight, especially I think the proposed school has valid reasons for being on lake property, and the structure is using an existing structure and an existing church camp that's been there for decades, so I don't see the harm and the concern with it being located where it is. I mean, that's where I think you could flesh out having more performance standards, such as I have the example of what Stearns County has in their ordinance that would be ways that you could address any concerns without causing this group to have to go through a variance process right off the bat.
So we could remove the language of tier 3 and 4.
Yeah, well, there's other things that.
Yeah, but that would be one of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's typical things like, is there sufficient water and sewers capacity for what they're proposing? Parking, how many, is there a cap on how many people you would want there? Those are kind of typical things that you would see that kind of would govern making sure that the use is compatible with the neighboring property uses. So just having it in greater proximity to the lake, I don't think that that's a bad thing. That forcing them to be in the 3rd and 4th tier would be counter to what the objective of the school with environmental education is all about.
Kind of what I was wondering, you got this facility that's already there, and you take like a resort, for example, they're gonna do some sort of education with their guests, so what's the difference? Yeah. Did you, I don't know, how the board would think you wanna send it back with the recommendation to change the language a little bit? Or we can do it on our own when it comes back to us, one or the other.
I'm fine either way. What would you guys want?
I'm good either way.
Which would be?
Which would be the simplest and
The
cleanest,
simplest,
I
yeah,
guess,
which
is
would be the
probably
simplest way. We'll probably end up cleaning up a little bit to allow this use without a variance.
If that would be the consensus at the moment, I would think the cleanest would be to share that feedback with the planning commission now so that they can draft something that would factor that in, as opposed to them spending energies and time developing something that you know that you're not supportive of.
Okay.
And I would ask that you include what does Stearns County to that board?
Yep, they've already received a copy of that. And I'll see if I can find other examples for them as well.
Okay. Can you get that on the agenda for this month, or do they have to wait? Is it too
I've
late?
put it on the November agenda as a placeholder, just
Yep.
in case
Yeah,
the board
okay.
would direct it back to them, then we don't have to wait a month.
Okay.
Someone want to make a motion with that language?
Also moved.
Okay.
I'll second.
You got the language proper, that we want to send it back with them to where this property and others like it wouldn't have to get a variance?
Well, and specifically, it doesn't necessarily have to be in tier 3 and 4, like you said. It doesn't really meet the objective of the school.
Yeah, so that basically, revisit performance standards, and the two that were proposed wouldn't be things that the board would want them to continue to retain in the draft that they would further refine.
Okay. Okay, so the motion and second is clear to you? Okay, any more discussion?
Did we have a second?
Yes, I believe we did,
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
yeah.
all right.
If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. That's all that I had.
All right, looks like K is next.
Why was this not in the consent agenda? I'm a little confused.
Oh, probably going over
The
investment numbers.
investment
Yeah.
schedule.
Okay, that's right, yeah.
That's
Okay.
right, that's my thoughts on it,
Yeah.
yep.
So, and I think Jeff went to get handouts,
Oh,
which,
I'm not sure.
which they're already in your board packet. So I didn't realize that you would need additional handouts.
Fine with the board, what we got here. I don't know how others-
And
Yeah,
there
'cause
aren't,
it-
there isn't
it
anything
showed up
different.
fine.
If you'd like to go ahead.
Okay, well, good morning. I was stalling, waiting for Jeff to come back, but, yes, the reason that this is under the finance and not the consent agenda is because I have an investment schedule. And I have been adding this monthly, but I wanted to go over it, because I haven't done a verbal update with where the investments are. And as you can see on this, we have roughly $19,739,814 worth of investments right now. That's as of September 30, 2023. If you could go one more page, Jeff, or keep going. And one more. There it is. And our local investments, which is almost 70% of those 19 million, we're at $13,561,034. That's all invested at the CNB Bank. When we do go out for investments, all local banks are given an opportunity to bid, and we take the most, what's in the most beneficial and in the best interest of the county. And the highest rate was offered by CNB. Right now, they're at 4.35 to 5.42%. That's included those magic funds that we have an account that CNB matches the magic daily rates, and currently I believe that is at 5.42%. We also have $2,066,486 at PFM, and that's at 4.7 to 5.63. If you look over to the right column, that's a 23 earnings, and that's just what's earned on bonds, and that's at zero. We just had a bond mature, $750,000, and that will show up in October. Earnings on that for a 12-month period was $34,460. And that was reinvested at 5.63 for another 12-month term. So the earnings will be very lucrative. Interest earned on the money market holdings as of September 30 were $92,000 for so far this year. Backing up to CNB, so far on bonds that we've had through CNB was $115,501. And then moving below to Ellers, we have $4,112,000. That's a harder number to follow. I was trying to track the monthly amount of bonds, but I've since stopped because it's now just included in the monthly earnings of interest and bonds. It's all together. Before I stopped, it was at 17,352. Currently, the earnings as of September 30 are $118,583. And those interest rates that we're earning are 4.82 to 5.75%.
I have one question on
Yes.
Eller's. Are those returns after Eller's expenses or before?
They are after.
After, okay.
They're outside of. Our expenses are right around 200 to 500 a month. I'm trying to think we book that every month. The one thing that we have not booked are unrealized earnings. And we will book those at the end of the year. And that is the only account that we do that with, which is going to be new for Hubbard County because of the type of, the way those investments are. Before we used Ellers, it was either PFM or, CNB, Northwoods, Northview, TrueStar, and it was all just straight CDs. And now we have an advisor that we're paying the expenses on. So, 118 versus 48,000 versus 92. The expenses are quite small and our earnings are much higher. So looking at earnings on our bonds and monthly earnings on just interest rates, total to date, as of September 30, were 582,000. If you back up to just one page where I have just the operating activity, I've tracked year-to-date interest earnings. Looking back to 2016, our year-to-date was 92,000. 2022 earnings was 165,000. So this has been a good decision in just changing the way that we're looking at our investments and going from 165 to 582, and we're not done yet. We still have 3 months to earn.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions? No, one of the things we're not looking at are, this does not include the fuel facility, it does not include environmental trust, and it does not include transit interest earnings. So the transit interest is also in CNB and roughly 3 million in holdings there, and that all goes to Fund 10.
And the county has a money market account too?
The county has a money market account, and that is included in the 582,000. This also included in all operating. It includes social services interest earned, just not those environmental trust, fuel facility, and transit. Those are kept outside of pooled funds. The last page is
Where you
general.
going, Kay?
I'm sorry?
So going back a couple of years, it almost looks like those larger numbers were probably because of the ARP funds and CARES Act money that were generating
Oh, 20.
more interest for us than,
Mhm.
and they were saving.
And the rates were good. 2022, the rates were terrible. It could also be that, I've tried to ladder, and there just wasn't as many bonds maturing in 2022.
So now we're doing better without the $6 million of ARP and CARES money.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. The last page, this is the general fund cash balance, and you get the monthly trial balance. And I think Nancy has put together one of these for Fund 11, Social Services, and this is just the same thing, only for Fund 11. And you can see how this general fund has grown over the years.
I don't seem to have that attachment.
I'm sorry?
It's
That's
not-
on the last page?
It's not in here. This is the last page I've got. We can get that out. It's interesting to take a look at the growth, and it's interesting to
there-
take a look at the seasonal trends.
Yeah, I had uploaded that and replaced it. So my apologies. I will email this out to you. Do you have any other questions?
When the economy's poor, the interest piles up.
Homeowners don't like the higher interest rates, but it's
Yep.
good for this.
Yep, it's good for this.
It is.
So there's also some restructuring and changes in the way that Kay is managing our investments that will carry us over rougher spots and lower interest rates because of the way that things are invested over time at this point. I'm, budgeting $750,000 in interest instead of $200,000 worth of interest is 2.5 points on the levy. Right, that's the impact is $550,000 is 2.5 points on the levy. So this is good. This is why when you see the levy request for the general fund, 23 and 24 have actually gone down the last 2 years because we're seeing these higher rates of return on our investments. So it's an important tool.
We are well laddered, but as we're able, I will lengthen those amounts if we could get into 3 and 5 years and currently we're 1 to 2, maybe some at 3 years. If I can take advantage of a 5-year at, the 4 to 5%, that would be very beneficial, but we're doing what we can to take advantage of these high rates right now.
You see the Fed start to lower, that's the time to start grabbing higher rates before it takes.
Time to
effect.
do it is just before you hear that that's gonna happen. That's one of the reasons having Ellers on our team means that we'll get some of their insight ahead of actual changes at the Feds.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's good information to get. Okay, finance, now
I would propose that since Bruce Schwartzman is here, that we go to 13C and deal with the proposal for professional services related to the jail project.
sounds good.
Yeah, Commissioners, good to see you.
See you.
Glad I can make it up.
By way of introduction, this is what we looked at a couple of weeks ago when we reviewed the proposal and the cost proposals. And Bruce just felt it was important to be in front of you before we asked for your approval on this professional services agreement.
Okay, go ahead.
So I don't have much to present, other than you all had heard from the sheriff and some others, the need for some of the space and the benefits that it would provide to the jail and to the law enforcement center, as well as addressing some issues for probation and the plumbing and things like that to take care of some of these deferred maintenance and some of the issues that need to be accommodated. So I'm here to answer any questions you all have about the process. I think the plan would be that once the county board approves it, we'll provide a formal AIA contract to the county to execute, and then as we move into December, actually start the work. The first step is the pre-design, and in the pre-design, what we would do is meet with the sheriff and the various staff members and make sure the information that we had in the preliminary concept planning is still valid. Use that to create some concept plans and some more detailed cost estimate, and then probably as we move into early February, late January, come back to the county board with the findings from the pre-design report at that time, at that point in time, before proceeding deeper into the project. Because I think we're looking at probably roughly about an 8 to 10 month overall design period. Now, some of that work I think we're planning on executing sooner, like the repairs and probation for plumbing and heating and things like that. Let's get that identified sooner. Let's figure out what needs to be done and get that work done sooner. So that's That's what we're thinking of.
I did have a conversation with Bruce Kimmel from Ellers relative to the timing of our debt structure. And he agrees that the amount that we're looking at to finance this and the debt that's rolling off and the new debt we take on would be within 5 or 10% of our existing annual debt service, which I think is what I told you last time, that we'd just be replacing that in kind on fresh improvements.
We're using capital account to fund this portion.
We will use, so there's two things that we'll probably do. Money that we spend before, in January, we'll probably have Ellers walk us through authorizing a resolution to go back and capture any capital funds expended when we issue debt later on in the cycle. And then we will determine how much of our current capital from 23, 24, and 25 we want to use to size the amount of bond that we take out to fund the rest of the projects. So those two things are working hand in hand. I have kind of an updated number looking at the capital plan. I updated some numbers related to this project, and I updated some numbers related to the Deep Lake Park project, and show that we would probably have the ability to buy that bond down by about $1 million if we wanted to, or we could look at other needs that we have and determine if we want to pay cash for something that's outside of that scope. But I'm guessing that in 2026, we'd be starting with a fund balance of about $650,000 in that capital account. And that's assuming that we, based on the news relative to Deep Lake Park, if we fund the match for the grant that we just got and then fund the unfunded portion of that relative to the remodel of the maintenance building, I think you guys have seen that there's another $200,000. So I'm showing making another allocation to that that you haven't actually approved yet, just a placeholder. So yes, we'd have the ability to buy this down, or what that would mean is whatever improvements we did in 24, 25 relative to this space and the other space, we could just pay cash for and not include in the financing for the other project. But we would always, in January, issue a resolution that said that the board would have the ability to go back and capture those capital funds from the capital project in the next issuance of debt. There's reasons that we would want to do that. Ellers would come in and make some advice relative to that. Probably most specifically related to the cost of money when we get to the point of issuing that debt, what the rates look like, and if we can benefit from borrowing another $500,000 or $1 million, or if we benefit more from paying what we have in cash towards that project.
So in the short term, we will be funding it out of the.
In the short term, we will be funding it out of that. Anything that we would spend in 24 or 25, we would do that before we issue the debt.
Any more questions? Well, then we need a motion to approve BKV Architects for jail remodel planning and design.
And I would probably ask that the motion would be to accept this proposal and authorize the administrator to sign the AIA contract written based off of this proposal, with obviously attorney review.
Who wants to make the motion?
Don't speak at once, right?
I just have one question. Were you involved with the original jail construction at all in any way? Okay, great.
Unfortunately, the architect that did that has passed some years ago.
Okay. I was
I've
just
been doing it in the state for so long, I've known every player that's done everything around the state, so.
Steve, I think probably Jeff talked to about this when you were on the board, but will you talk about how that was the last jail?
Oh,
design?
yes.
Yep, I think we did have that
There was a
conversation.
transition into a
Yep.
different design and everything. I understand that.
Okay.
This just seems like, it's a lot of money, to improve a building that isn't all that old. I know there are safety issues that are associated with it, and I understand that. It's just, it's a struggle for me to really jump wholehearted into it and support it.
Commissioner, probably the bulk of the money is being spent on the intake and the remodeling of intake, which is a critical aspect, because you're dealing with more and more individuals in that initial process that need space. When your jail was done, similar to others in the state, a lot of them were being done with the idea of direct supervision, which is a one staff to 60 inmates model. And at the time, it made sense because, face it, staffing is a bigger impact than construction cost over time. And so a lot of facilities, we're doing some remodeling right now, planning in St. Louis County over Duluth too, where they had some of these bigger 60-bed type inmate units. The problem is, over the years, what they've found is that you don't have a lot of people classified the same when they come in.
Yes.
They have multiple classifications, so it makes those units really not usable, because if you have one person that's really can't be housed with other people, you have 59 beds that are sitting there that can't be used. So part of the planning is really to subdivide your housing units to make them much more flexible for mental health issues, for female needs, all those other things. So in the long run, it'll support the needs of the jail for many years to come in a much better fashion.
Yeah, I would just like to see every square inch of what we have utilized to its best capacity, and then anything we have attached to it or in that area be utilized as much as possible through any sort of remodel to make it well suited for many years into the future, so that we do not have to revisit this again.
Makes sense.
Okay, in your camp?
I had the same thoughts, and even some constituents who said the same thing.
Yep,
That's why I wanted to have that tour.
That's what I keep hearing, you know, and
Get this
Yeah,
explained.
over half of the proposed cost of this project is the new square footage to support the intake, the garage, the protected space, to address the, the difficulties of not being able to get emergency vehicles into the Sally Port, So, and then the balance of, housing unit remodels is relatively marginal. So we're not really changing the interior space that much. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. And
Oh, yes,
I've got-
definitely.
I've got the same concerns. I'm really not too excited about spending the money on it, but on the same token, it's not gonna get better at doing nothing.
No, I agree with that, but we've got other departments that are also outgrowing their space needs, and it's just, it seems like everything has been prioritized for law enforcement, when all these other departments are struggling just to get by with what they have. And it's just, it's hard for me to swallow, that's all.
The other point I would make about it is deferring that. It's just gonna get exponentially
Oh,
worse
yes.
faster
Yes.
than our other needs,
And
probably.
it's gonna get a lot more expensive,
So, having
definitely.
to prioritize this over other needs
Yep.
makes sense, even though I don't like it. But it just is,
Well, I wanna do whatever we can to support law enforcement, of course, but I also wanna make sure that we truly support all of our departments and the employees in the same fashion. I know there's safety issues there that have been mentioned at the jail and the intake facility and whatnot. And on the tour, yeah, you can see that it gets pretty darn tight in there, especially if you have someone who is not cooperative. And I do understand the needs for all of it. I get it, but it's just really hard to grasp that dollar amount with a facility that really truly isn't that old. So that's all I had.
Very good concerns. Okay, we still haven't had a motion yet.
I guess I'll make a motion based on Jeff's recommendation and how it should be worded.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, any more discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes.
Commissioners, we'll do everything we can during the design phase to look at some cost-efficient measures. So we keep that to heart of what you said.
Yep.
Thank you all very much. Have a good day.
And we'll bring updates to you as we have them through that process, obviously.
Okay.
We do have Angie Ehrman and Stephanie Fairchild from Knute Nelson here to talk about Heritage Financials.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Have you guys met Steph, the executive director?
Oh, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Okay.
Nice to
And
meet
then
you.
this is Angie, she works for, Knute Nelson?
Nice to meet you.
So honestly, I think the two of you have the first few minutes to make an introduction of yourself, because you haven't met all of the board members.
Okay.
Stephanie asked, do I ever get to meet the rest of the board? And then I said yes, and then Ted's not here today, so I apologize for that. But if you want to go ahead and make introductions of yourself and
Sure.
how you got to be here.
So I was hired beginning of January, to be the executive director at Heritage by Acumen. I have been here for almost 11 months now. I came from Little Fork, Minnesota, where I managed a 49-bed skilled nursing facility and a 12-bed assisted living, and I had been there for several years. I ended up, I have a daughter who lives in Walker, and that was one of the reasons why I moved to Park Rapids. So I relocated at the same time, and I have really enjoyed becoming a part of this community.
Right, I'm Angie Ehrman. I work for Knute Nelson. My title is Chief Clinical Officer. I've been with Knute Nelson for 30 years. So I started out as an RN, and then had a bunch of other leadership positions. Got my license as a nursing home administrator, and then recently as an assisted living director license also. So we started getting into the management. So our corporate office is in Alexandria, and you guys are maybe familiar with Crystal Brook. We manage that also. And we got into managing sites kind of closer to Alexandria. We manage Glenwood Retirement Village, Pelican Valley Senior Living, the Franciscan Sisters of Little Falls. So those are the sites that I oversee. And so we've found that it's been beneficial for those facilities to, have the management team that we have, because we have a lot of experts in accounting, HR, and various other departments too. So hopefully, as we talk a little bit about financials, that we'll be able to have a huge impact on how the financials turn out this year. So that's our goal, is to fill the building and have positive outcomes for the residents, financials, and for the staff too. That's a huge part of what we do.
So I've attached to this agenda item, the fiscal year for the nursing home is October 1st to September 30th. And I've got the September 30th 23 financials for, is that fiscal year 23?
Yes.
We're in fiscal year 24 now?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So we've got the year-end financials there, and you can see those. There's a combined statement, and there's one for each of the three operations. The next item I have is the budget for the operation for fiscal year 24. And then the final one is just a copy of a reminder for you of the countywide debt service schedules. And three of the four, or these three are ones that are debt service against those properties. The only outstanding other one we have is the one with the jail that's going to be retiring mostly in 25. So this is what this was, and I share that primarily because when we put the budget together for, that's 23. So here's the budget. Initially, the interest and debt service line was underreported when this budget was brought forward in September, and kind of understandably so, because when the debt was taken out, that major $10 million debt was taken out to improve the nursing home, it was back-end loaded, meaning that the choice was made to have the lowest possible debt service in the first few years and then have the rest of it apply to that. So when I blow this up and talk through this with Angie and Stephanie, we have a negative cash flow projected, but we also have conservative numbers for occupancy projected for this year. So that is just kind of a full disclosure to you as the rest of the board. The members that are on the Heritage Living Center board are well aware of this. I don't really calculate in the depreciation and amortization expense when I calculate, well, I don't use it when I calculate cash flow because it's not cash flow. But we would be really hard pressed to fund this project or any of our other projects if we fully funded depreciation and amortization. That's why we run up against having to borrow to do improvements that are needed. But I share this with you, and then I also, by way of making sure that you have this information on a regular basis, Angie and her team have been working with Kay, and we've already processed. We will have processed Octobers, or we are going to be able to process Octobers. Anyway, we're going to be including the monthly financial impacts in our IFS system so that you will actually see that. The next version of the budget you will see will include Fund 55 and the 3 departments for the 3 operations over at Heritage Living Center. And you'll get to see those in your regular monthly reports, although they may be delayed a month with that just because the reporting has to go through a couple of hands. But you'll actually get to see those in a format that's familiar to you, that you'll see along with the rest of the operation of the county. And based on recent trends, I'm assuming we're going to close the gap on that cash flow balance by the end of next year, especially if we can get some staffing hired and we can increase some occupancy, which I know everybody's working on really hard. But I wanted to have the opportunity for you to meet the 2 of them because they're really key in the success that we've seen in the last year has largely been due to Stephanie's work day to day with the staff, with the occupants. I'm sure that Commissioner Delahunt and Christensen will have comments about that as well. And then the organization and the hands-on approach with Knute Nelson in the transition, I think, has really been helpful and sets the tone for a really good outcome in the next years to come. We did sign a 3-year agreement.
Yep.
We did sign a 3-year agreement that started end of September this past year, so.
I would add that as long as I've been on the Heritage Board, and if you go back and look as far back as you can get your hands on audits, we've never had enough cash flow to service the debt. So maybe once in the entire existence, I think that I've seen that it has. So, which I guess is fine. We just need to know that. I mean, the business model in itself, debt aside, generates cash, but not enough to service the debt. So if we can get a reasonable amount where if we have over $500,000 of cash flow every year, we have to service some of the debt, it isn't any different than it's probably been for 20 years.
Yep. Just the monthly reporting within our own accounting system will make it much easier for you all to see that. And then at some point, we'll have to make we'll make a determination by not making a decision to fund that, or by making an affirmative decision to fund it in some other way. And there are ways to do that, but at this point in time, I'd probably make a recommendation that we wait and see until this time next year if there's a need to more specifically solve that. I've worked in places where we have a hospital district and there's a specific levy to offset the cost of those services in the community. It's completely reasonable. And it's completely transparent, and that's a conversation to have. But let's wait and see. I have high expectations that number is going to come down this year.
Be nice. Okay.
So some of the accomplishments that my team has had over the past year, and I really put a lot of emphasis on my team and on our employees because we wouldn't be successful without each and every one of them. We just became a 5-star CMS facility, which is the highest that you can go. They describe it as much above average. That's a goal that the existing employees have been working on for several years.
I think that's only like 5 to 10% of all facilities are 5-star, so it's really a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, it's very nice. Our facility also received a 5-star Minnesota Resident Quality of Life survey last year, which I've never seen a quality of life survey that was that high. It was astounding. And so we celebrated that. We've increased census in our assisted living, particularly in the manor. When I came, we had 12 residents, 11 to 12. Today, we're currently at 21. That changes those financials for that part of our facility dramatically. We have not had a contract staff contract for a person to stay there a long time since the end of April. That's helped financials. We've really increased our employee footprint. I want to say, I haven't had the recent numbers, but I think our retention is probably at 76%, and our turnover is in the mid-50s, which is really good. In terms of numbers, probably about 15, 16 more employees that I've hired since I've started. We've had a really successful regulatory outcomes, which enabled that 5-star rating, and it also reduces the amount of any type of fines that you would get for any care episodes or any, deficient findings. And we, if you look at our financials for last year, we had to work really hard all year to overcome the first 4 months because they had the biggest losses. And we did work really hard, and we ended up with a positive cash flow even without our $221,000 payment from the state of Minnesota. I am working diligently, as is Knute Nelson. We're budgeting and forecasting what we need to have a positive net at the end of next year. And similar to my other experiences, we really need to have about 44 residents. That's my next goal. That's where you're gonna have a positive net. The difficulty of this nursing home in particular, and some of the newer models that they're finding, is we're 2 floors. So that dramatically changes some staffing needs that are required to staff that 2nd floor. But we're very close. We'll be negotiating with the unions in November and hopefully coming up with some good forward movement in wages and benefits. And I'm really excited and anticipating that we will open up at least one of the upstairs hallways, and that will allow us to get to that 44.
I will add kudos under the current hiring environment. It was a monumental lift to get rid of that traveling nursing pool and replace it with regular staff. And I want to compliment Stephanie for working as hard as she has on it, because that probably is the single biggest difference maker right there. And it was a lot of work. It's a lot of work to go through that process every day for how long? Since you've been here.
Yep, and it's not even just getting your employees in the door, it's keeping them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard in this work environment because, as you know, I'm sure, it's an employee's work environment. So they want, I have some diehard nurses that are like, well, back in the day, you laid down the law and, everybody showed up on 5 minutes early because that's how you were taught. And in this environment, people want flexibility and they want to be heard, and, so it's really changing some of that culture.
The other thing we're looking at doing is starting an on-site nursing assistant program that you can utilize modules or online modules and then have a clinical site so we can train our own on-site because of the distance of the schools.
Yeah, and I have to give a shout out to the Park Rapids School District and Tia Kaka. She runs a wonderful program. She also ran a class for us over the summer that was half virtual, half in person, and that's really enabled us to capitalize and get a lot of the young students in there.
Steph, could you share how, can't remember what that pay is for the,
Yep, the workforce grant.
yeah, so share how you thought out of the box to incentivize.
So, I applied, the state of Minnesota had opened up for applications a grant that would work for retention or for recruitment of employees. They had to make $30 or less an hour. And they had, originally they had a pot of money, and so they thought up to $3,000 per employee. And then you could list your empty positions. Well, they extended the deadline, and they ended up not having enough money to fund even this year's request. It was supposed to be a 2-year program, but we did get, I want to say like 182,000.
Yeah, came up to be
Roughly.
$2,840 or something like that per
Yeah.
employee.
So, to be fair, I broke it down, so our full-time employees who follow those guidelines will get a bonus of $2,600 that will break up quarterly throughout the year, so that we're working on retention, no one gets a bonus and then leaves, excuse me. Part-time employees will get $2,000, and on-call or PRN employees will get $1,000. And then I also tied it to attendance. So we have an attendance policy at the care center, and we're allowed 12 absence episodes. So if you called in and you had the flu for 3 days, that's 1 episode. But if you called in 1 day and then next week you called in another, those are 2 episodes. So they are allowed 3 episodes during the quarter. If they go beyond that, then they forfeit the benefit for that period, and then would start over. So I'm hoping to also increase lower our absenteeism rate.
I just have one other comment. I'm friends with someone that has a couple people living in Heritage in different spots. And the praise for Steph and what she's done with the staff and creativity has been very high, so.
Thank you.
We were able to this last year to refresh many of the manor apartments,
Yep.
which has made a significant difference in being able to lease them out.
Yep. We, during our tours, got feedback that, the flooring was old, appliances were kind of old. So we went in and we looked at it. We changed up some paint colors, we put in new appliances, and we went with a new waterproof, high-quality vinyl flooring throughout. And we've had excellent reviews on those, and we've had, a lot of success filling them. And then going forward, our plan is to, as they become open, do the improvements that we need to, so that it's rentable and we can keep this going on a sustainable level.
I know a couple people that live there, and they're very happy with their apartment.
Good, good. And, I have an open door policy. If someone has a complaint, I encourage all families to come to me. I said, we can always go through our systems, but there are always breakdowns at different periods. And I said, if you let me know, I'll make sure it's taken care of. And that's been very successful. So,
And the other thing that will help support too is the marketing and sales program here, so we're working on that. Just updated the website. We'll be working on some dedicated staff that will be dedicated to sales and admissions and marketing, giving tours and different things like that. So, and reaching out more in the community, being a little bit more involved that way to gain people's comfort with both the assisted livings and the care center.
we've got actually quite a large waiting list for residents.
So we might not need that. We just
So,
got to get staff and then get them
Yeah,
in
we
the
get
door.
staff.
But we're
in place.
close.
We
We're
are
close
very
to it.
close, so
Yeah.
we're excited.
Sounds really good.
Yeah, it's a different outlook than where we were a year and a
Yeah.
half ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very important service to your elder residents that live in this county.
And
We get a lot of we get a lot of outreach from, you know, maybe they're in Detroit Lakes, maybe they're further away and they have family here and they want to come here. You know, so that's what, we have to keep a balance, especially when we're at, the most we can take right now is 37 safely. We have to keep that balance of rehab and long-term, just because the rehab is what brings in a lot of money. So we try and keep that balance, but then we also know, like, if we had some hospice patients and they were long-term, then okay, let's fill this bed with long-term on someone who's on our list, and then let's keep, you know, going so we can serve our community.
People want to be close to their
They
aging
do.
parents.
They do very much, and it's hard to take care of them if you live here and they live somewhere else.
Yep, for sure. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yep,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Any questions for me about Knute or anything? You guys are probably a little bit familiar with having Crystal Brook here in town. All right.
They've been wonderful and very, very translucent.
They have been wonderful, yes.
Because when they took over, we had to change our entire phone system. We had to change our entire computer system. We had to change our network. We had to change, I'm trying to think what else was on there. We had to change everything. Emails. Our old emails died on the date of transition. So they had IT on site for 5 or 6 days assisting us. And, you know, we're still working through some of the software issues, but they have been so supportive. They have a new, or not new, but they use a different payable system, which I have already caught things that we're paying for that we shouldn't be. And, you know, being able to look closer at that detail and just say, nope, this isn't us, this needs to go somewhere else. So we're going to continually see improvements through this transition.
Okay. Thank you.
Right,
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, take care. 10:30 is coming up real soon.
It's coming up real soon.
Okay, we can,
Should we take like a 3-minute break? Quick break?
we'll take a break until 10:30?
Do you want to make a motion to close the open session and open the closed session after a 5-minute break?
Sure.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, that was after?
Okay,
Okay. Oh.
Steve,
I'll second.
okay, I got Steve and
There's
Dave.
no quorum here.
Still quorum.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. that one. You want to do the roof project change before discussion on Jed's position?
So what I have here is attached a change order for the scope of the roof project on the historic county courthouse. Just a reminder that the initial replacement, the grant was $237,000 with a county match of $22,000. We were roughly at that budget when we approved this contract to have How-to-Jack contractors do this. This change order comes from the fact that nobody had gotten up to see what the actual material was on the very top of the roof. And that they're gonna have to order a new piece, that it's probably not gonna get done until spring. And that this change order is representative of already adjusting the quantities of all the other materials, so that we're getting the best possible price on this. So this is what we're hoping to approve. This would be a cost completely borne by the county. The grant's not gonna change. We do have to submit a change in scope to address that. There's one more item that I would probably add to the scope of this and do as a small change order. If you look just down the corner, that lower level entrance, that lower stairway from the outside that goes in, that was not in the original scope of this project. And those, I don't know, what is it? 12 by 20, so 240 square feet of shingles haven't been replaced in this project because they weren't in the initial scope. I'd probably have them do that before they vacated the property, and we just pay time and materials on that as well. But so that's what we're looking for, is an approval of this change order so that they can get that those materials ordered. And I don't know if this hangs out for another 2 weeks. They might get it done if they got the materials, and if they don't, they'll do them in the spring. But we're still getting a $300,000 repair done for $60,000.
It's gotta get done.
Yep.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes.
And then conversation about the vacancy in the highway engineer position. Originally in the agenda materials, I had put a request to hire DDA to develop search materials and do the advertising for us. And in the last 4 days, truthfully, we've had so much interest in the position that I don't think we would do that. I talked to Gina, and she'd prefer to handle the search in-house.
In-house.
And if we don't get good results, then we have the opportunity to go back to DDA to do that for us. But we'd probably save about $10,000 doing it ourselves. And I believe there's enough interest to do that this way.
And the statute requires that engineering license, so all the in-house has that?
I'm sorry, we would do the search in-house. We do not have anybody on staff who's qualified to take that position.
Oh, okay.
We would do the search in-house, meaning Gina and Mike would handle the search and the advertising.
Oh,
We
I
would
got
not
you.
hire DDA for
Oh, I
that.
got you.
We do not have anybody on staff with a PE who is qualified to apply for the position.
Okay, got
There has been interest from outside already?
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those things that travels through pretty quickly.
Yes. There's been a lot of communications between JED and other departments in other counties already.
Well, you did sound confident that there'll be somebody, very glad they take the position. Okay.
So, that's more of an update because we don't need action to take that regular. We've got a vacancy, we'll advertise and fill it. We have a statutory obligation to do that. His appointment is until 2026, and by the statute, when we hire somebody, we can appoint them for a year, which will not get us to 2026. So at 1 year's anniversary, we'd have to appoint them to fill to the conclusion of the existing term, and then take it 4 years at a time, as we normally would with this position.
Being a department head plus the position requires board approval, do you, on the
I think we,
to
I think we
interview?
would probably want, I think for this one, we probably want 2 commissioners involved in the interview process.
Yep. Okay.
So, if I were to look at timeline, and we kind of talked briefly, if we advertise, we might close, you know, end of November, first week in December. We might be interviewing before Christmas, we might not be. Due to the professional nature of the position, we're probably not gonna get anybody here till February 1st or March 1st. So when we have an actual timeline, and that has a lot to do with the materials in my inbox to process this, so Mike and Gina can move forward with it. That we would identify that. So I don't know who's interested in serving on that committee. I know Ted's not here, so we don't really have to make a determination now, because we won't have any candidates to review before their next board meeting.
Well, we can wait till then.
Okay.
I-
Be interested.
Okay. I noticed, in Jed's letter, he said January 5th, but here today, he said December 28th.
Yes, and that was a change, which is why I pulled it.
So now it's
And then
December
it's
28th.
December 28th.
Okay.
Which works for his new employer. It works for us. It really doesn't change that much as far as coverage. And I'll probably have a coverage, you know, when we know the timeline that we're looking at, I'll also have a coverage proposal. I don't know if we're gonna have any gaps where we need a PE to sign off on anything in the estimated time that we'd be without one. I don't think so.
Probably the only thing that would have to be signed on are any sort of plans that are
Yeah.
developed for county state aid monies and so forth, so, and
Yeah.
any federal project.
In any federal or planned projects, I think we're gonna work ahead to get ahead of those, and then give us an opportunity to be able to pick them up and catch up in March. January, February are not the busiest times of needing those signatures on those finance programs.
And, a salary range, do you need to go to David Downs for that?
We're gonna
to update
do,
that?
we're gonna try to have a look and see, where we're at with the market on that. We always have to update your job description, and we always have to verify the salary range before we do that. So yes, that's part of what's in my inbox to review before we get a posting out.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
I have interest in being part of the process, but I know individuals who have expressed an extreme amount of interest in the position, so I don't think I should stick my fingers into it.
Well,
But I
your
would-
specialty is transportation.
Yeah, I know, but I know people who are more than likely gonna apply for the job, and I just can't. I can't see me having any role in the hiring or anything like that. I just don't feel it'd be appropriate.
Okay.
I am willing to give input, no doubt, but yes, since I know people who are interested in the position, not to say that they would be the final candidates for the job, but I just feel I should kind of step back from that a little bit.
And I would be interested as long as interviews aren't December 1st through the 14th.
I don't think we could spin them up that quickly, but.
I would defer to
So then I'd be
Ted,
good.
because you guys are much more up in this area than I am.
We'll, when we get the posting ready to go and we have a better idea of the timeline, we'll bring that back in 2 weeks, which will make it easier.
If the people that I know don't apply for the position, then I would certainly be interested in serving, definitely. But since I've had working relationships with several of them, I don't think it's appropriate.
Alrighty, next is, committee reports. Wanna go first, David?
I'm not ready yet. I
Okay.
don't know if I have too much to review here.
Sarah?
Yeah, I can go in. I missed committee reports last time, and so I'm just gonna touch on, I went to the soil and water tour. It was very well attended, and it was really interesting. I would recommend anybody that was able to go if they hold it again. My largest takeaway from it was, I remember, we had the board discussion about when the one watershed, one plan was being put into effect, if soil and water would be needed. And I came away from the tour really seeing a need for the local soil and water from the same way that townships, and then it goes to county, and then it goes higher up in the state. It's about local input and control, and so, I came away really supportive of soil and water. And Crystal and her staff have done just an amazing job in really just moving the entire organization forward. And so it was really wonderful. And it was attended by many people outside of the Hubbard County area that had interest.
Yeah, apparently it's held once every 9 years it comes back around, so it's gonna be a pretty
Yeah.
fair length of time before it comes back to Hubbard County again.
Yeah, it was really worthwhile. My hubby had a meeting on Friday, and it was held at the new building in Wadena County. Let's see, what was I gonna say? They had just purchased the building, I think it was in July, and so it's right on the main area there, Highway 71 goes through. Liz had someone come in, I did not know there's a green island preserve in Wadena, and it's right past Kel's Cars. You take a left, and there's a 60-acre preserve that somebody's taken their land that's been into their family for several generations. It's got walking paths, and it's got fruit and medicinal herbs, self-guided tours, several different organizations come out, and so anybody that wants to, they just say, come on over and do that. So that, for relaxation, that was really interesting. The Prime West meeting, I went to on Thursday, and as you know, they're, because of COVID, now they're in the process of going through who should be on insurance. And Minnesota was one of the, I think it was 20, it's either 21 or 27 states that have been removing membership by families. And some of the kids still qualify, even if the parents can't be on, they don't qualify for the insurance, so Minnesota has to go back through and redo all of the people that they've taken off to make sure their kids don't qualify or someone else in the family doesn't qualify. But so far, Prime West has a decrease of 1,538 members. So they currently have a membership of 61,012, and they're guessing that actually it should be around 55,000. Year-to-date, net income for them is $17,253,662. And so this is one of the good years. We remember, we talked about how it wasn't too many years ago that we wondered if we would make it through a year because we were in the negative. So it just depends on how Medicare and Medicaid decide to reimburse. And then just a reminder to the board that anybody that is a provider for Prime West is paid over and above the Medicare and the Medicaid rate for their services. And then also, just a side note, Minnesota is the most expensive state for healthcare. Surprise, surprise. That's all I have.
Well, I guess I'll go next. Got several of them here. One is Kitchigami Library. We've had several several committee meetings. One of them was the policy committee, we're updating different policies. One of them is adding an inclement weather policy that they didn't have before, and then updating the parental leave policy. We had just recently a budget committee meeting that we met, and we updated budget requests to counties and cities. We found some more money that we could use from the reserve fund for outreach, and that has to do with the mobile library. So even though this still has to be approved by the full board, I think the full library board next week, looks like we can reduce the request to Hubbard County from $254,887 down to $248,887, so that's a $6,000 reduction. That'll help our goals towards the levy. Then Dancing Sky Council on Aging, we had a meeting and we approved the 2024 area plan, which includes items like salaries and grant awards. And then we had a Crow Wing One Water Said One Plan policy meeting. We were going to vote on setting some priorities, but we didn't have a quorum. So we're going to try to do that again in January, and also to see if we can set it up to where we'd have hybrid meeting, because we were just one short of a quorum. We could have just had one person on there, but we did spend the whole meeting though talking about these priorities, and some of those that have come to the top include soil health, groundwater quality, and alterations to natural drainage. And that includes the issues on Beltane high water problems. They already had their first citizen advisory committee meeting, and John was there for that. And that's about all for that.
So they're working on a solution for Beltane?
It's going to be on their list of priorities. Right now, we're just setting priorities.
Right, but that's the goal.
Definitely, yep.
Good.
Yep. Well, I did have we had a park boards meeting. You all got the note from, I guess it was Corey, about the $1,181,500 that was approved for the grant for phase one. And in case you're not familiar with what that includes, phase one would be demo and restoration projects, road and parking lot improvements, electrical service, entry sign, and like Jeff had talked about already, the maintenance building renovations.
Good news.
Huh?
Good news.
Yeah, it sure was.
We'll have it done next week.
People on the tour were really interested in the park when we stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got an SWCD meeting tomorrow, so I'm going to update them on that 1.1 million. I'm sure they'll be happy about that, because everyone in SWCD is very interested in that park. Okay, that's all I got.
I had a few committee meetings. I went to the North Country Community Health Board in Bemidji, and also I had the health board here in Park Rapids at the hospital. They both talked about the same things. They're all going through the budget time right now. But the update was there's 30 families enrolled in the family home visiting program right now. The WIC numbers have gone up quite a bit. There's 560 participants as of June 2023 in the North Country Community Health Board realm for WIC. In Hubbard County, it's 100 participants alone. So those numbers have really gone up from what they compared to prior to that. Trying to think what else, the hot topics we talked about. That was about it. They're going to continue their grants. They're not, the North Country Community Health Board really isn't looking at increasing their budget at all. They're going to pretty much stay within what they proposed the prior year. So there wasn't any increases or anything like that, so that was good to hear. I attended the extension meeting and the fair board meeting. I went to both of them. Both of them were quite happy with the way the fair went. Everything went well. Extension, I think, seems to me they did a pretty good job with 4-H and whatnot. The only question from the fair board was, how much time is the extension agent supposed to be spending at the fair helping coordinate things? And it was more of a scheduling issue than anything, I think, is what it ended up being. You know, time worked and then time off was kind of a question as to how it was to be allocated around the fair, because the fair is a busy time for all of them, everybody that's involved, not only the extension office, but then the fair board as well. So there was some disagreement on how time was used and how they should move forward, but that could just be a interpersonal kind of thing too as well, you know. And other than that, I think that about covers it.
Steve, I just have one question. Do you think that part of the reason the WIC program is up is because groceries have gotten so expensive?
I have a feeling that is part of it, yes. They're trying to do more educational for everybody too that comes to WIC. They want to educate them about the broad healthy spectrum more than just, oh, well, here's your supplies, we'll see you the next time you come through. But yeah, I think that's driving it. So that's basically all I had. I went to the HRA meeting, but I didn't stay because I wanted to get to the planning commission meeting, because there was topics in my district, so I kind of bounced back and forth a little bit. So I don't have much to report on HRA, so.
Another interesting thing about the extension meeting is we learned all there was to know about apples.
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting. I have no idea what kind of apples
You
I
learned
have.
the different
They just
types.
taste good. is all I
They're
know.
red.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a question, what's your favorite variety?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
Joyce told
yeah.
me about that.
And then was it, nowadays they figure the Honey Crisp wouldn't even make the cut.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like very few out of 10,000 different
Yeah.
so what did they
species
replace
try
it
and
with?
create. Very few, like in the single digits,
Yeah.
actually make the cut
Yeah,
of
it's,
them continuing on with it. And the U of M was saying Honey Crisp wouldn't make the cut today. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, after Joyce talked about that with me, I became more conscious of looking for the different varieties when I go to the store, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
did she say what varieties that now are hot?
no, but I picked out one that's called Gala, and it's
Oh,
a
yeah.
nice sweet.
Oh, but
Yeah.
that's been around for a long time.
That's been around.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
since, I looked it up, since the 1700s, I think.
Huh?
Yeah. So very interesting anyhow. It's
Yeah,
well, there's a lot of
education.
choices in apples too,
Yeah.
you know. But it is local availability is gonna be an issue, so.
Nothing earth shattering with HLGC, just normal business and, basically Mary was here just recently anyhow filling you in most of it, and then you got the rundown on Heritage too, so. Is that good?
Okay. Any meetings to note, other than our conference, AMC conference coming up?
The AMC conference coming up, I think everybody's registered to the extent that they're going to.
Oh, everyone's registered?
Well,
That's a change.
Going.
I think everyone is registered if they're going.
Oh, that are going to be going, okay.
and just to note, SEP has their open house next Tuesday. I'm sure we all
Yeah.
got an invitation,
Yeah, I
but
saw
that's our
that.
work session, so
Yeah.
I just let them know that I wouldn't be coming because of the work session, so
Who's all going to the AMC besides me?
I am.
You are? That's it?
Is Ted going?
I believe he indicated he was.
He was, okay.
I believe so,
That's
the
a
last time I
change from-
spoke with him.
okay.
But,
Tom, having been on the Board of Adjustments, so if this campground comes along with a CUP in the winter, my
That's actually
concern-
planning commission.
Yeah, my concern is, will commissioners have a chance to go out and view the property if this happens before winter?
Yeah,
Right.
because the lake really needs to be viewed too, because I went out there on a boat, I don't know if anybody else did, but there's only a small portion of that lake that you can actually drive a speedboat. The rest of it is muck and very shallow all the way around.
I recently went out to that boat landing, just to walk down there. There's a
Well,
long strip.
that's an experience in itself.
There's a trail going down that strip, so I just to get an idea of what the lake looked like.
Yeah, I have been on the lake and looked at it, but if they put this CUP in and the planning commission would go look at it, depending on snow conditions and stuff, what do you? what are you
Although
gonna look
the
at?
planning commission's
Do they
been out
quit in
there,
winter?
but they've already been out there twice.
Okay, but we haven't.
We have not.
And so if it goes through the planning commission, then it comes to this board, we won't have an opportunity before having to make a decision to really view the site. That's the only thing I'm worried about unless it's, because once that happens and once they rule on it, you gotta make a decision within 60 days, don't you?
yeah,
Yeah.
you have to make some sort of action, whether it's further investigation or something like that.
But if you don't have enough information, I believe you can extend it. And we'll have to get with Eric on that if you feel that you don't have enough information.
And one thing that the planning commission did not talk about was the topographical map of the lake and the different depths. That was never part of their discussion. So I actually asked Eric about that, because that was an issue at Long Lake a couple of years ago when someone wanted to put a campground in.
Yeah, there's, we'll get to that discussion if a guy puts in if he puts an app in anyhow, but Your problem nowadays is that's what's left.
Yeah.
That's what's left on the lakes, you know. And a good example of that area, not quite, but similar, very similar shoreline, very similar shore bottom out for 50, 60 feet is, what's the campground right, kitty corner on Long? Spruce Hill. That whole area back in there was very similar shoreline. And I would, if you went out there in the middle of summer, there's really no stress on it. People get nervous about it, but campgrounds aren't heavy users of the lake all the time. Vagabond would probably be the exception to the rule.
It's more of an atmosphere draw.
Yeah, right. And there's a lot more kayaking and canoeing type of stuff than there is power boating and that. And fishermen aren't sitting there running up and down the shoreline, they're going out fishing and coming back end of
Yeah.
day.
They did, a lot of them probably bring their trailered boats and go to other lakes.
Yeah.
'Cause that was a concern. I watched the video for
Yeah.
that, because I want to keep up with it when it does come to here, but that's some people on Blue Lake, I believe, they were
And it is
concerned about it.
secluded back there. I mean, there's
Yeah.
really nobody back there. But, yeah, well, see, my concern was that if this comes to pass before winter, we might not have a chance to view it
Well,
without a lot of snow on it.
Didn't you take the pontoon ride out there?
Yeah, I saw the lakeside.
Lakeside, okay.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to see the topography and how
Yeah.
that layout would work too from the other perspective.
Especially with all the material they gotta haul in there.
Yeah.
That was an incredible amount of stuff.
So I'm sure if he does put a PUC or a CUP together, the planning commission will be going out there. If that happens, we should know about it, so we have the opportunity to go visit it, see it at the same time. Otherwise, we'll miss our opportunity potentially.
We'll have to watch for it.
They viewed it last month because he submitted a variance, which they approved.
Yeah, I saw the variance.
Yeah,
was
and so
approved.
they,
He hasn't
they had lot
submitted a
review then
CUP yet,
also,
though,
yeah.
They'll go back again
Yeah,
for
they will,
CUP.
yeah.
Yeah. And maybe he won't tell March or something like that. Who knows? But he's gone this far through, I'm sure he's gonna put in an app.
Oh, yeah. He's put a lot of money into this thing already. Those engineering plans, that must have cost them a fortune. Okay, and anything else? Otherwise, have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second? Okay, we were adjourned.